Army fans, this is Joe Iacono with GoBlackKnights.com following Army's 44 to 10 thrashing of the UAB Blazers at Mikey Stadium today. Army goes to 6-0, becomes bowl eligible on October the 12th. That's the first time they've been bowl eligible this early in probably 20 years. They've scored over 40 points now, 3 weeks in a row for the first time since 1985, I'm told. Let's break it down, get into the game a little bit. Uh, you know, UAB gets the opening kickoff, ends up in a fourth and short, decides to go for it. Elo Mendoza makes a big play, stuffs the running back. Army takes over with a short field. First play from scrimmage after a 5-yard offsides penalty by UAB. Bryson Daly goes 29 yards to the house, stiff arms the defender right into the turf and lets UAB know you guys are going to be in for a physical war all day, which UAB clearly was not prepared for. Army comes out, so they're up 7-0. UAB goes down the field, drives down the field, gets a couple first downs, missing a couple passes, hit on a couple passes. Really tried to throw the ball, run hurry up, which a lot of people didn't think was a good strategy. I don't really care what their strategy would have been. They just clearly were the inferior team today compared to Army out there. So, I mean, I think Bill Belichick could have been coaching UAB, and I'm not sure it would have made much of a difference. Um, so we hold them to a field goal, so it's 7-3. Army comes right back down the field. Another big Bryson Daly run. Go up 13-3. Army goes to fake the two-pointer, misses it. Then gets a stop, comes back down later in the first quarter. And a third Bryson Daly touchdown to make it 20-3. Casey Larkin had an interception that led to that drive. He capped it with, I think, like a 9-yard run. At that point in the game, Army was averaging 10 yards a run. And then right before the end of the first quarter, Caleb Fortner made just a vicious play on a Utah draw shuffle pass where he just read it perfectly, read the guard, scraped, and just slammed the running back for like a 3 to 5 yard loss. There was pressure on UAB's quarterback Kitna all day long. I'll give you the stats in a minute, but there was pressure in that backfield most of the day. And the secondary was doing a really good job in coverage, causing the pressure to get there in a lot of cases. He didn't have guys running free all over the field. So great job by the entire defense. Second quarter starts off. This time it was Kanye Udo who capped the drive with, I believe, a 15-yard touchdown run to make it 27-3. Then UAB put together probably their best drive of the entire first half. And in typical Army defense fashion, they get down to the goal line and they were doing some pretty creative stuff on offense, splitting tackles out wide, going with only 3 guys. Army was really a little bit caught off guard trying to defend that. But they get down to the goal line, and for some unknown reason, they decide to run the ball 3 times in a row into the strength of Army's defense. And Army just stuffs them. And then on fourth down, uh, got a quarterback sack and got a turnover on downs. That was the second turnover on downs in the first half. Note to teams on Army's schedule. I know you want to go for it on fourth down because you don't think you'll get a lot of possessions. Tulsa and UAB have both tried doing that, and it's failed miserably and given Army short fields. And you give this offense short fields, they're going to score every time. So while I understand the thought process, here's something you may want to alert yourselves to. Army's got a pretty doggone good defense in short yardage as well. Their front seven's really, really talented. And if you're going to go for it on fourth down, you're not going to get it a lot of the time. Nate Woody's defense came to play again. And for everybody who's like, oh, UAB threw the ball for 169 yards in the first half. And how many points did they get? For the 1 millionth time, you get no points for yards or first downs. That's not the object of the game. The object of the game is to get in the end zone. Nate Woody's D doesn't give up big plays. Nate Woody's D eats big plays for breakfast. And as a result, they have one of the top 10 defenses in the country. So Army goes into the locker room 30. So 27-3 at that point. Then they come back. all of a sudden, UAB started having a little more success against Army's running game. Bryson Daly connects two long passes to Casey Reynolds. Uh, One, Casey made a really nice adjustment on the sideline, made a really nice catch. Next one was pretty much a go route straight down the middle of the field for a touchdown to make it 34 to 3. Uh, at the half, there was a little bit of back and forth right at the end of the half, but Army's defense came up big again. Casey Larkin got his second interception in the red zone. So 34 to 3 at halftime. We were all hopeful Bryson Daly and the starters could sit at that point. Army's playing so well. It feels like the only thing that could derail this train at this point is a Bryson Daly injury. Some other key injuries could hurt as well, but Bryson especially has got to stay healthy. So Army brings their starters out for the first drive of the second half. They do exactly what they're supposed to do, march right down the field. Bryson Daly scores on the last play of the drive on a QB counter where Connor Finucane pancake blocks a defensive back for Bryson to get into the end zone, and it's 41 to 3. At that point, Army brought their second team in, or as one of my childhood coaches and mentors, Tony Polacari, used to call them the Hungry Huns. Army brought the Hungry Huns into the game after that, and Dwayne Coleman led the team down for a field goal, made it 44 to 3. UAB finally got a score late with 2 minutes left in the game to make it 44 to 10. And then Cale Helms came up in mop-up duty to finish out the game, a quarterback for Army, keep Bryson Daly healthy. The statistics were just mind-boggling. Army's never done this to an FBS team. These are the kind of stats we usually put up against FCS teams. So let me go through some of them for you. 28 first downs, 515 total yards, including 413 yards rushing, 102 yards passing. Army was 3 for 8 through the year for air through 12.8 yards per pass, 7.4 yards per rush. Army ran a total of 64 plays and held the ball for 35 minutes. Um, Only really the second team committed some penalties. The first team only committed one penalty, which was great. Of course, we had the two Casey Larkin interceptions to win the turnover battle 2-0. No real issues. They did bobble a punt again. Didn't fumble it, but bobbled it. Can't wait for Terrell Robinson to come back because we really need help catching punts. We did rough a punter in the fourth quarter, which led to their scoring drive, I believe. That's something we got to clean up, obviously. I'm not sure if it was the starting pump block team or if it was the reserve pump block team that did that, but that's something that happened individually. Uh, Here's some stats. Bryson Daly, 3 for 7 through the air for 102 yards, 14.6 yard average, one touchdown, no interceptions. Bryson had 12 carries today for 136 yards and four touchdowns on the ground. So once again, he accounted for five touchdowns. Kanye Udo had another big game, 17 carries for 97 yards and a touchdown. Noah Short, 4 carries for 42 yards. Samari Howard, 5 carries for 37 yards. Dominant performance on the ground for Army. Casey Reynolds had the 2 receptions for 84 yards. Cam Schur, 1 reception for 18 yards. Defensively, Andon Thomas led the team in tackles with 6 total. Once again, like not mind-boggling stats on defense because all 11 guys are playing big time. 6 tackles for Andon Thomas, 5 for Caleb Fortner, 4 for Elo Mendozi. Mendozi was all over the field, had a sack and 2 TFLs. Fortner had that one huge TFL. Brett Jarena had a big TFL and a sack. Eric Ford had a TFL and a sack. Really, really great effort by the Army defense. Trey Granati got a field goal, which is a rare occurrence for Army this year. So he was 1 for 1 on field goals, made all of his extra points again. James Wagonseller did come into punt twice, which I know Coach Munkin's not going to love. Had a really great average, though, 49.5 yards and pinned both of them inside the 20, which was nice. UAB offensively, let's see, was held to 242 yards passing. A lot of that was in garbage time And like I said, none of them, they had one or two explosives the whole game, nothing damaging. They only ran the ball for 61 yards, which is well below their season average. So the Army run defense comes up again big time. They made a lot of penalties, a lot of mistakes. And so let me give a little analysis. First off, UAB, not a good football team. It's probably the kindest way I could say it. Other than maybe Lehigh, they're probably the worst team Army's played all year. Lehigh may be better than them, to be honest with you. Um, just fundamentally unsound. Didn't throw the ball well. Didn't catch well. Made a lot of penalties, unforced errors, two turnovers. Not a good effort for UAB in general. After the first couple series, when it was clear they were going to be in for a physical battle against Army's offense, it looked like they wanted no part of it. Army's offensive line completely dominated the game. QB counter went big, option went big, fullback dive went big. There was really midline option. There was really no part of Army's offense that wasn't clicking today. And a big reason for that was Army's offensive line just annihilated what was a pretty big and athletic defensive front for UAB. Not surprising because Navy did the same thing to them. So I kind of expected that, but Army just had complete dominance. Army didn't even have a third down until I think really late in the second quarter, or maybe even the third quarter. They didn't have a fourth down until the backups came in, other than that drive right before the half where they tried to go 1 minute drill. Um, and UAB had to shut that on down. But really dominant performance on offense. Um, I'm going to go ahead and say it. People need to start talking about Bryson Daly for some major postseason awards. Is he going to win the Heisman? No. But should he be in the conversation? Yes, he should. Um, Four rushing touchdowns today. He now has 14 on the year. That puts him right behind Ashton Jeanté with Boise State, who's the number one rusher and number one leading Heisman candidate right now. Daly is dominating. He is controlling this offense. He is a force. Nobody wants to tackle him. He's powerful. He's fast. He has great contact balance. He breaks tackles. He can throw the ball. He throws the ball intelligently. He only really made one pass where he tried to force it today. Other than that, everything else looks good. Yes, I know Army hasn't played a strong strength of schedule. I understand. But what do good teams do to bad teams? They dominate them and they destroy them. We've seen Army in the past plenty of times play bad teams and either lose to them or have really close wins. In fact, the last time Army was in this uniform combo with the black, and gold, they barely escaped against the Citadel in 2020 in the COVID year. So they have gotten a lot better since then. And that was a team that didn't really play anybody either. Ended up the season 9-3, but won the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, lost the bowl game to West Virginia. Army's bowl eligible, speaking of which, 6 games into the season. 6-0, really exciting, best start since 1996. I told you about some of the other stats earlier. Another 400-yard rushing day. I get that it's UAB. But this is what you do to bad teams when you're good. You dominate them. You don't give them a chance to breathe. It was 20-3 at the end of the first quarter and 27-3 before UAB really had a chance to wake up and put together their first halfway decent drive. Then let's talk about the defense. I think the most underrated unit on this club, again, giving up 10 points. Nobody has scored more than 14 points. Bryson Daly said in the post-game press conference today, second touchdown was my favorite because I knew once we had 14 points, the game was over. That's pretty awesome. Basically, the offense is like, we scored 2 touchdowns, we got this thing. And yet they're putting up 40, 45, whatever, just smoking teams. Will the schedule get harder? Yes, it will. It gets significantly harder after the next 2 games. East Carolina will probably be the best team Army's faced thus far. They're not great, but they're better than anyone Army has played so far. But Army is getting better every week. And maybe most importantly, they're staying healthy. They haven't had any significant injuries. And oh, by the way, Terrell Robinson is this close to coming back. So he'll either be back against East Carolina or Air Force. I think that's pretty much my prediction, and we can go with that. Um, Army looks really good. Let's look at common opponents, right? Because there's a lot of talk online, a lot of chatter. Army hasn't played anybody. Army again, can't do anything about the schedule. You do what you do to bad teams. You smoke them. And you know, I looked at the Tulane score against UAB at halftime, and it was 37-6. Our score today against UAB, 34-3. Pretty comparable. Pretty comparable. Navy beat UAB 41-18. We beat them 44-10. Pretty comparable. Temple score, pretty comparable. Right now, the AAC at the top, you have it shaping up to be Army, Navy, and Tulane, not necessarily in that order, but that's what you got at the top. Oh, I forgot to mention, in addition to Heisman for Bryson Daly, how about Davey O'Brien Award? You typically think of the best quarterback in the nation as a passer, but what are the criteria? Um, if it's best quarterback in the nation, I think you have to put Bryson Daly in that conversation. And certainly he's up for AAC Offensive Player of the Year. That's something the announcers talked about today on CBS. Really, the team played an absolute complete game today. No complaints. Again, this game plan the teams are going to. Sorry, I'm really dried out today. Where they're really being aggressive early. I understand why, but all of a sudden you give Army a short field and now you're down 2 scores and this game's over. Put it away. With this defense, unless you're a Power 4 team, you're probably not coming back from a two-score deficit. I mean, maybe Tulane would have the firepower to do that, but I don't know if anyone else would. It's really interesting too. The best two other teams in the conference, Navy and Tulane, are built on running the ball. And the one thing Army does really well is stop the run. So I think we match up pretty well against those teams. Not saying we're going to win, but just saying it's a pretty good matchup. I like the way that goes. But East Carolina's next. So got to take care of business against East Carolina, get to 7-0. That will put them at 6-0 in conference, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 6-0 in conference with 2 conference games left. So got to take care of business against East Carolina. East Carolina has been inconsistent, but they are athletic. They can put points up. So they do provide a little more of a challenge than UAB and some of these other teams. But if Army plays Army football, I really don't see anyone stopping this offense as long as they continue to stay healthy, at least not on their schedule until they get to Notre Dame, right? So that's kind of where we are. Really exciting. It's just again, it's a great time to be an Army football fan. Where what we're seeing, we thought the portal would really hurt Army when it's actually really helping because they've got a veteran group that's been around 3, 4, 5 years, and these guys are really gelling, really playing well together. And oh, by the way, I know Coach Monken will never admit it, but they've got some athletes. Let's call it what it is. I don't want to start naming names, but they've got Bryson Daly is an athlete. Kanye Udo, athlete. Noah Short, athlete. Casey Reynolds, good hands, really good hands. He's not going to blow anybody away with his speed, but he's got good hands. Defensively, Casey Larkin, really impressed with his play. The linebackers, Andon Thomas, Chance Keith, Elo Mendoza, Caleb Fortner. Defensive line is athletic and tough to block. This team is looking better and better every single week, and they are really headed down a good road as long as they can stay healthy, keep their heads screwed on straight, not read their press clippings, and realize that they got to go 1-0 every week, be the tougher and more fundamentally sound team. Last little editorial comment. Don't know if anybody watched the beginning of the game on CBS, but UAB's quarterback, Jalen Kitna. This may not be popular, but I'm going to call it out. 5 counts of child pornography. What is he doing on a college football team? I'm not saying I don't believe in second chances, But that's kind of a bridge too far. And choices have consequences. And you do something like that, in my humble but accurate opinion, you should never step foot on a college football field again. And you better seriously rehabilitate your life from the ground up. What is UAB doing? Is winning football games really that important? Um, Again, another reason to root for Army. Don't think any of Army's kids would have that on them. And if they did, they'd be gone faster than they could say their name. So, not trying to get preachy, not trying to get political, but you can't let that one fly. I'm sorry, you just can't. And really surprised about that whole situation. Gets kicked out of Florida, which is not exactly a school with a lot of high standards. Aaron Hernandez, I'm looking at you. And so now we pick him up and put him on a team. Wow. I got a lot of respect for Trent Dilfer. I like Trent Dilfer, but I'd love to ask him what he was thinking on that one sometime. And unfortunately for Trent Dilfer, his team keeps playing like this. He's going to be out of a job, which is unfortunate. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a classy guy. I like him. I think he knows football. Just UAB has not gotten it done this year. So anyway, done with my rant, but thought that needed to be said. Thank you. And everybody enjoy their week. Big game week at home coming up next week for Army. I believe it's homecoming against East Carolina. So that'll be great. Go Army, beat Navy, and beat East Carolina.